Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. The weather is warm, and that means it's the right time to begin that home improvement do-it-yourself project, whether that's sealing your driveway or adding a deck or fixing up a bathroom. A.G. Hines Company has the building materials, and they'll walk you through the project step by step. They've been doing it for 100 years, since 1920. A.G. Hines Company. Okay. There's still no word from Tennessee regarding their plans for selling tickets this fall. Iowa State, with a smaller stadium, says they're going to try and aim for 50% capacity. As we told you a couple of weeks ago, Ohio State is thinking, well, we may be able to get 20,000 in our 104,000-seat stadium. Arkansas says we're going full speed ahead, but we're not selling single-game tickets yet, which means we're going full speed ahead until we can't go full speed ahead. We don't know what's going to happen with capacity. I'm here to tell you that aside from the monetary hit, Tennessee wants people in there. The businesses in Knoxville want people in there. But aside from that, I don't think it makes that much difference because Tennessee hasn't had much of a home field advantage anyway, and that's no knock on fans. Take a look at these numbers. Going back all the way to 2005, that's 15 years, okay? That's 8,000 coaches. The Vols are 69-39 at Neyland Stadium. That is a 63% win. That's barely better than a coin flip. But what makes it worse, take out the teams that you're supposed to kick the crap out of, the tomato cans that you bring in, the non-Power 5. You have a losing record over 15 years against the Power 5 foes at Neyland Stadium. And for that, I applaud Tennessee fans. Sometimes there's only 65, 70,000 people over there. If you're on average beating one or two Power 5 teams a year and that's it, then credit to the fans who are buying tickets to go over there and watch a bunch of losses to big teams and wins over dunces. But 29-35 versus Power 5. And for anybody who says, yeah, well, that was a long time ago, Georgia State, BYU last year, you're only 4-8 in your last 3 years against the SEC foes. Guys, I don't think it's going to impact Tennessee. If they're playing at home and there isn't a huge home field advantage, obviously you want it.
Yep.
But history says it doesn't matter anymore at Neyland Stadium. Am I overplaying that?
Well, last year for the BYU game was one of the crowds that really stood out in my mind. It was a lot of people in that stadium, a lot of enthusiasm from start to finish. You'll find one of those where everybody sits down, rah, 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 and then by halftime it's flat. And you still lost to, I thought, an inferior team. And, you know, the one counter argument that I would give is Tennessee has not been good for a lot of those games. And so, okay, the crowd can't make you that much better. But another game that stood out to me where the crowd was into it beginning to end was the Oklahoma game back in when Butch Jones was here. What was that, 5 years ago now, 4 years ago?
Yep.
That was another game. The crowd was fantastic, but it still didn't push you over. So I think get better, crowd can make a difference. Got a talent gap, not so much.
We have Florida at home this year, right? 2018, it was a great crowd. Now, that's year one for Jeremy Pruitt, year one for Dan Mullen as well, but Florida just came in and just dominated the game. The crowd was great. 2012.
Tennessee turned the ball over and played like they were on the road.
Yeah, right.
In that game. They looked flustered.
Yeah, 2012, crowd was great for that Florida game. Tennessee just dropped the ball, and that was an offense. Tyler Bray, Justin Hunter, Cordell Patterson, they're loaded up. Just didn't matter. And that's not a knock on the fans. It would almost be the opposite. You're saying the fans did their part. Right. It just ended up not helping on the field. Now, maybe there can be some kind of balance because one place that I do think is really tough to go play in that environment is Norman, Oklahoma. Maybe you get a little help there, but in terms of Neyland Stadium, I don't think it makes that much more of a difference. I think it's more about just what Tennessee can do to those errors that we're talking about, to eliminate those to be a better football team.
Yeah, and in that 15-year span, you're talking about two good Phillip Fulmer teams, two bad ones, but two good. One made an SEC championship game. You're talking about two Butch Jones teams that finished in the top 25. You're talking about a 7-win Derek Dooley team, a 7-win Jeremy Pruitt team, or 8-win when you throw in the bowl. So you're right, they haven't been great. There's a lot of bad years thrown in there. But there's some good years thrown in there, too, when they should have beaten some of these teams that were inferior, and the crowd was there. Georgia State, BYU. You lose an opener to Georgia State, and if you don't score late, it's a 2-touchdown loss. That was an 8-win Tennessee team? Mm-hmm. Okay, that tells me that there's some disconnect, and it's not the fans. They're loud. But Neyland Stadium as a home field advantage doesn't seem to be what it used to be.
No, and it will be interesting. I think it will come back as Tennessee improves.
Probably.
And Jeremy Pruitt, if he's the guy and this team is going in the right direction, I think that home field advantage will come back. I think there have been some teams in there, even 7-win teams, that got you to a bowl game, but they just weren't that good at football teams.
Okay.
So I think it's hard for the crowd to overcome those things.
I think it could come back if he gets Tennessee back into that top 10 range every year where Tennessee wants to be. Okay. But this year, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it.
To me, it would be about the team taking advantage of what the crowd is, because the crowd has, more times than not, I would say almost every time, shown up and delivered everything that you would hope fans would for a big game.
Well, again, if you're selling season tickets to people and you're telling them going in, we're probably not going to beat 2 Power 5 teams this year. You're probably going to see 3 wins against real duds and then 1 win against the Power 5 team. That takes some doing for somebody to say, yep, I'm still putting my money on the table, giving my seats. So fans have done their part in terms of the crowd noise and the support. In terms of the results, it hasn't made much of an impact over the last few years. All right, when we come back, let's start looking past SEC East champions of the last 8 years since expansion. What do these teams tell us about what Tennessee needs to be in 2020 if they're going to compete for a title? And is Tennessee ready to do that? We start that next on the Sports Source. Come on back.